Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on when and where you are experiencing this particular session of the Festival in a Box 2.0. This is the session featuring the Spirit of Yorkshire and their Filey flagship bottling. So please do get yourself that bottle out of your lovely pack, and we will commence the tasting. I'm going to bring in Joe Clark, who is the director of Whisky at Spirit of Yorkshire and a long-time friend of the Whisky Lounge. I'm going to bring him in now, and we're going to have a chat about this particular dram. Good afternoon, Mr. Clark.
Hello, Eddie. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Probably a bit cooler than you are right now.
I think you're definitely cooler than I am right now. Yeah, we're in the middle of the day, and I'm right between two very hot stills.
Yeah, possibly not the best timing, but never mind. So, Joe, obviously I know you very well, but the folks back home may not be aware of who you are and what you do. So if you wouldn't mind just introducing yourself, and I'll pop back in a second.
Sure thing. So hi, everybody. Yeah, thanks for tuning in, listening, and grabbing a tasting pack, tasting our whiskey. My name's Joe Clark. Eddie introduced me as Director of Whisky at Spirit of Yorkshire Distillery, and what that means is, I'm responsible for making sure what's going into our bottle tastes as good as it possibly can be. So yeah, we're quite a small team, so it's quite a broad role. Do lots of different things within the business, but ultimately that's at the very core of what I do. Making sure, that our whiskey's tasting good, which requires a lot of tasting.
Oh, my heart goes out to you, to be honest. Cool. Okay, well, let's get started with the tasting of the bottling. So, if you want to introduce, what this particular whiskey is, and perhaps what it's, how does it differ from other whiskies in the range, et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah, please fire away.
Yeah, sure. So, actually, what I'll do is I'll just pull the bottle up there so you guys can see that a little bit better. So, this is our Filey flagship. We launched this back end of last year. It's in October time, 2020. It's a kind of really lovely example of what we're all about. We're making a kind of light fruity style of whiskey, and Flagship was, if you like, the whiskey that we always had in mind kind of 5 years ago when these stills were fired up for the first time. So it represents our house style, and is the first whiskey that we get anybody to taste if they're in a tasting with us or coming to visit. So yeah, it's a light, kind of fruity, soft, easygoing whiskey. I'm not sure what running order everyone's tasting in throughout this, but it's the kind of whiskey that's great at the start of a tasting, and it's great to kind of bring people into whiskey because it is, very soft and very light and very approachable. So bourbon matured, and it's a combination of two distillate styles that we make here. So this side I've got spirit still. Here I've actually got a 4-plate rectifying column, which allows us to make two different styles of new make spirit, all from malted barley that we grow, but I'll get onto that in a little bit. And yeah, bringing those two distillate styles together to help build kind of layers and texture and mouthfeel. But again, the predominant focus of this is our house style, and that is the bourbon barrel. So light, fruity, and easy going.
And would you suggest a drop of water with this, or what would you?
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I mean, I love it at 46%. 46 is the minimum bottling strength for us. So, I tend to drink a lot of the whiskies we're making around that strength, as you'd expect. But we are, quite a young distillery. There's no getting away from that. We started making whiskey in 2016, and like any kind of whiskey that has a kind of younger characteristics. I would say a little bit of water can really lift a lot of flavour, and for some might make it a bit more enjoyable or a bit more kind of easygoing. But it's horses for courses, isn't it, Eddie? It's what people enjoy and how they enjoy it. Definitely no harm in trying it. The sample in the packs is 50 ml, 5cl, so there's comfortably enough whiskey there to pour a bit, try it as it is, and pour another bit a bit later, and try it with some water. Or get 2 glasses side by side, try it with, try it without. That's the nice thing about tastings. You can experiment and play about.
Yeah. Well, I've tasted it without water, so I'm now going to pour a bit of the lovely Larkfire water into there. And so, in terms of flavour, what would you expect viewers to find within the Flagship?
So on the nose, it should kind of lure you in with some nice kind of creamy vanilla and citrus, and a nice kind of barley sugar sweetness. And as you move on to taste it, and if you give it a good few seconds just on your palate before you swallow, and just let it kind of just think about the texture and the mouthfeel of it while you're doing that, and as you're swallowing, you'll notice a lot of kind of lovely kind of candied, kind of lovely fruity flavors emerging throughout the palate and the finish as well. Giving it that bit of time just to kind of work it out is really important on the palate. And it's classic bourbon matured flavor characteristics. We've got vanilla, honey, citrus, toffee, caramel, that kind of thing. But in there, one of the really important parts of this whiskey, and one of the absolutely kind of crucial parts of all the whiskeys we release, is having a kind of a good hint of our distillery character in there. So it isn't just about wood. We want the distillate character to come through as well. And when you're down here on the morning when we're doing the middle cut, and we're in that spirit safe, and we've got it open, and we're working through that cut and the processes that we use when we do our cutting process. You get lots of lovely kind of pear drop flavors, and lots of kind of lovely diced kind of green fruit kind of flavors as well. So fruity in one word, and different layers of fruit. If you wanted to expand on it some more, and it's a whiskey that we're immensely proud of, because it's not easy to go out at this age with something that we are going to be releasing year in, year out, and continuously kind of making available. So we've kind of made, I think, quite a bold statement with that. It's not all about wood. It's got a lot of lovely distillery character in there as well, and distillate character. Kind of balancing out, and that's the key thing. It's balance,
I'm sorry, I'm slightly distracted by the steam coming from the stills.
Yeah, not only have I set up between 2 enormously hot stills, I've also set myself up on top of the condensing valve at the bottom of the spirit still. So there's a little valve that comes out the bottom of the spirit still, and that's just open a tiny crack at the moment, and it's bringing a little bit of steam up into the video, and it's not making me any cooler, I'll be honest.
Dousing you in lovely hot steam.
Yeah, but, it's all of atmosphere, So there we go. Yeah, I mean, what do you think, Eddie?
Well, I think it's as you say, it's very fresh, fruity, floral. Just ticks the boxes for certainly for people coming new to the brand. And as you say, it just provides a nice building block for everything else to come. So
that's exactly right, and it's a lovely introduction to what we're doing. We have started to build a range out from Flagship, and since our launch, which was the end of 2019. If you look on our website, or if you come and visit us, or if you're in a whiskey shop near you and they're stocking us, then you'll see Flagship, and you'll see it alongside some other bottlings and releases, which take this style, the bourbon mature style that we hang our hat on, and takes it off in kind of different directions. Moscatel finish, STR wine cast finish, and most recently a peated finish, which we launched just a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, which I had the pleasure of tasting the other night, which is very welcome. Anyway, while everyone's enjoying their dram, why don't you tell us a little bit about the history behind the distillery, and why Yorkshire, and why particularly close to Filey Bay. Just tell us a little bit about the whys and wherefores.
Yeah, sure thing. So Distillery, if you like, was first conceived around the bar of our sister company brewery, which is about 2.5 miles up a hill over there. And yeah, that brewery and that bar is on a farm. That farm is a home to the Mellor family. And yeah, Tom Mellor, one of our founders, and his good friend David Thompson, who's our MD, up there way back, nearly 10 years ago, kind of having a conversation about, why is there no whiskey made in Yorkshire? And they certainly wouldn't have been the first people to have that conversation or that thought, but they're definitely the first people to see it through from an idea to actually really committing to it. So its origins, way back as just a kind of idea in 2012, 2013. And then, we saw the stills, which are next to me here. They were fitted in the winter of 2015. So you kind of go from idea through to actually seeing the equipment arriving on site. And from June 2016, Tom and Dave were here firing up. They were here at this Spirit Safe with Dr. Jim Swan, who was working very closely with our project and with the setup. And between Tom, Dave, and Jim, they made the first Spirit and filled the very first casks. And so that's kind of 5 years. We're in June 2021 now, so we're 5 years down the track. But its origins are really testament to Tom and Dave. Tom being a third-generation barley farmer. So, Tom's always grown barley. That's what he's always done, and it's what his family have done before him. So, one way of looking at us is a diversification project of taking that barley crop, all the way through to a final product. And I don't need to tell you this, Eddie, but in whiskey, it's incredibly unique. You just don't come across that very often. The fact that, the whiskey that's crossing the lips now, the people watching this, I could rewind that back through all our records, and I could take you, stand you in the fields at the farm where we grew that barley, and that's an amazing thing. So I guess in a nutshell, two really good pals that wanted to make a whiskey distillery and love whiskey and happen to be very good at growing barley as well, and making beer. Tom's been making beer since, kind of back in 2003, they set up Walltop Brewery. So, there's a lot of brewing experience behind our setup as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of key skills involved there, which are definitely useful when building.
Oh yeah, I mean, if you're going to make mistakes early on in whiskey making, a lot of it will be in the mashing and the fermenting and the brewing side of it. And if you've got kind of 15 years brewing experience under your belt before you fire your stills, then you're setting off with a very strong footing. Yeah.
Well, it brings me nicely to the next question, which you've kind of alluded to one or two things there, but are there any particular quirks in the production process that maybe makes your distillery stand apart from others that you feel strongly about?
Yeah, I think absolutely right at the top of that list is the field to bottle production principle. That is, such a rare thing in whiskey, and it's something we're immensely proud of. So, when you're buying our whiskey and you're tasting Filey Bay, that is, something that hopefully you can be proud of as well. We've got full traceability on the spirit in that bottle, right back to where we're sowing that grain and growing that barley. So number one on the list, the field to bottle principle. But after that, the list goes on in production. You know, we're using 2 types of yeast in fermentation. We're fermenting over 75, 95-hour fermentation time, which isn't certainly not the longest in the industry, but it's definitely not the shortest either. It's a kind of medium length fermentation, I suppose you could call it. We do our milling and mashing up at the farm. So we've got 2 fermenters up in the brew house up there. So, you know, we're bringing that wash, which is, you know, the kind of what we're distilling down here. We bring that down from the brewery twice a week. So we're split over 2 sites. That's a bit unusual. You definitely don't see that in Scotland because they wouldn't be able to do it. But it's certainly not the norm. I think if you do come across other companies doing it, it's still not under the same umbrella of ownership, whereas with us it is. So we've still got, you know, complete control over the whole process, but we are split over 2 sites. After fermentation, you know, we're on to the equipment that we're using and how we use it. So the stills we've got, some of the biggest, nicest, shiniest stills making whiskey in England. We've got a lot bigger kit than most of the other English whiskey distilleries. So we're 5,000 litre wash still, which is on this side, 3,500 litre spirit still on this side. And I already mentioned it a little bit earlier, but we've also got a 4-plate rectifying column, which isn't a standalone still. It's an extra piece of equipment which allows us to re-divert our spirit, you know, which would be ordinarily making its way into the safe and through the process, but we can re-divert the vapor through that column. And yeah, it allows us to make 2 distillate styles, which again isn't something that you typically see in malt whiskey production. So we put it on the back of the box. If you grab a box, it's nicely illustrated there. But you know, the best way to get your head around it is obviously to come and see us at the distillery, and we can explain it all on a tour and that kind of thing. But yeah, the 2 distillate styles is brilliant because from my point of view, that means we've got more options in terms of flavour and character, and you know, from a kind of sensory and blending point of view, having those options in your warehouse is just brilliant because it's just more to play with and more to do. You can make more flavour and make something ultimately very delicious with that. Mm-hmm. And then we'll be on to casks, and there are some cool and interesting things we do with casks as well. Yeah. As you'd probably expect, and may have seen and indeed tasted already, Eddie. In fact, actually, I've got something super exciting that's coming later in the year, which I'm going to stick my neck out, and I think could be arguably if we're not the first to do it, we're definitely one of the very first to do it. And I'm speaking broadly over the whiskey industry. Okay, so sounds intriguing. So yeah, we don't stand still. You know, we've got plenty of interesting differences. Yes. So you mentioned people coming to see you. I'm guessing now that you're reopened for tours and the ability to accept visitors. Yeah, so we actually just reopened the coffee shop on the 5th of June. We've had the shop open for a little while. That's open kind of as close to as normal as possible, I suppose. We're starting tours again from the 21st. So from the 21st of June, you'll be able to, you know, book onto a tour, come in, get right into our process and get under the skin of what we're doing. We put a lot of time and energy and effort into our tours. So yeah, it's quite different to what some people might have experienced perhaps visiting a big distillery. We get a lot more into the nitty gritty of production. Yeah. And just for those of you that don't know where the Spirit of Yorkshire is, if you head to York and then drive about an hour eastward towards the coast, you'll soon get there, and it's definitely worth the pilgrimage. So highly recommended to you staycationers. Indeed, it's absolutely beautiful here this week. Yeah. When the weather's nice out here, I mean, as with so many places around our country, it makes such a big difference. But we're you know, if you stand in the back of the distillery, or if we're in the tasting room or the office, you know, we can see the beach, Filey Bay. Yeah. You know, from those windows. It's a big reason why we went with that name, as you'd probably expect. But that is a beautiful stretch of beach. I was walking along it just last night, actually, and you know, yeah, it's beautifully still, and just, you know, lots of reasons to visit out here, not just whiskey. We've got Dom coming into the shot. Say hello, Dom. So he's checking the spirit safe at the back there. Hey, Dom, how you doing?
Okay, so just to move on to another question. So what, and you've kind of alluded to some things already, but what does the future hold for such a young distillery? Are there any expansion plans? Are there any parts of the world that you'd really love to export to? You've already alluded to an exciting product line that's coming through, but can you elaborate on any of that?
Yeah, sure. So one thing you might have picked up from this already with the equipment that we've got. We're not a micro distillery. We're punching kind of 80,000 liters of pure alcohol a year, 84,000 liters of pure alcohol a year. We've made a lot. We've made a lot of whiskey. We've got nearly 3,000 casks laid down, and so you can't look to sell that whiskey just here. And we're building already. A brand which we're hoping that you'll be able to grab a bottle of Filey Bay Yorkshire single malt whiskey in Paris, Berlin, Krakow. So we're already exporting. You can pick up our whiskey across Europe, which is fantastic. Actually, I was in Italy just before the lockdowns came in at the front end of 2020, meeting customers out there, which is just absolutely brilliant. The fact that you could sit down in a beautiful kind of bar and cafe in Rome and get a measure of Yorkshire whiskey is superb. So yeah, we've got big ambitions recently, and we're pretty close, and it's not there yet, but I think by the end of this year you'd be able to grab a bottle of the whiskey we make over in the US, which is amazing. So we're getting out there. Yeah, plenty of hopefully opportunities for anybody who's watching this who's overseas to kind of, if they wanted to taste our whiskey and get hold of it more often, that opportunity will be there. Yeah.
Yeah, sounds like a very ambitious plan.
But it's amazing. It's really, and again, seeing this from, when the first kind of things that we put in a bottle, which were kind of 1.5 year old spirit, that was just kind of releasing that, 2,000 bottles a time, really just at the distillery shop here, going from that over the course of 5 years to the idea of our whiskey being available in somewhere like New York is kind of quite surreal, but also amazing.
Yeah. And I'm sure on a personal note, you're dreading the idea, once it's safe, of flying off to the US or Asia or wherever it may be, applying your wares.
Yeah, it gives a lot of opportunity to get out there and see some really amazing places. Yeah, which is one of the brilliant upshots of doing the kind of work that we do. Yeah, quite excited to get out there on the road. Really, to be honest though, even just being able to get out and do some of your shows again, and visit customers around the UK and do that would be enough for any of us right now. We are absolutely so ready. We've got a team of absolutely brilliant, really excited, really, really passionate people that want to get out and show everybody what we've been doing.
Yeah.
Because we've been feel very cheated out of our launch year. We launched in 2019, winter 2019 at York Whisky Festival, as you know.
Yeah.
And then not even 5 months later, we were like, right, can't go anywhere.
Yeah. No, I know it's not ideal, but I can imagine they're all.
We've made the best of it, and events like this are absolutely superb. And I'll take that opportunity to thank you for the effort in still getting whiskey out there.
Well, we do one's best. Listen, now just a final quick question for you. What's your thoughts on the current state of the whiskey industry as a whole, globally? And is there anything that you're quite excited by that you see coming down the track?
Great question, and not one that you can answer it in I suppose in brief. But yeah, there's loads to be excited about right now. There's so much amazing whiskey to be tasting, drinking, and exploring. I'm particularly kind of keen to see what's happening, with kind of up and coming distilleries in kind of traditional whiskey making countries. So we're seeing a lot of distilleries coming of age, or that will start to be coming of age pretty soon. And these are big distilleries and small distilleries. Yeah, and that I find really exciting and really interesting, because of course I'm always looking at that from a similar position. seeing how other people are facing the similar challenges that we're facing, and how they how they approach that, and how they talk about their whiskey and what they're doing, and really clever and interesting things in flavour. Loving ideas that are coming across from some really brilliant distilleries in Japan. That's no big secret that they're making amazing whiskey over there, and I think tightening of rules in their kind of industry is going to do a world of good for them in the long run. Hard to pin it onto one thing down the track. It's an exciting time for English whiskey in particular. We're kind of in a situation now where 5 years ago there was one English whiskey to drink. Right now you could walk into a whiskey specialist and you can see a shelf of English whiskey, and that's just going to keep growing. And some of us all coming of age at a similar time. There's Cotswolds, Lakes Distillery, Bimbra, to name a few. And what we're doing collectively every time we're out and talking about English whiskey, and all of us doing our thing, that's building an audience for English whiskey, and that's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, you think back to when we were working together, which really isn't that long ago.
Mm-hmm.
But even I think back to when I was working in a whiskey shop in York, and kind of go, well, someone came in and said, "Can you show me your English whiskey selection?" And you'd be like, "Hey, really? That's never going to exist." That's a crazy idea. I mean, you'll have experienced or thought about that.
It feels like a long time ago, but actually it isn't in the relative scheme of things, right?
Yeah, well, not when whiskey's considered.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, we could go on for ages, I'm sure, but I think I've probably taken up enough of your time. So, listen, I really appreciate you coming on today. So, thanks to yourself and for everyone at Spirit of Yorkshire. Thanks to the viewers for tuning in. I hope you've enjoyed this session. So, we'll say a quick cheers or Slanjavar. And Joe Clark, thank you very much.
Yeah, cheers, Eddie. Thank you, and thanks for watching, everybody. And hopefully we'll see you here at the distillery or out on the road and take some whiskey together.
Absolutely. Cheers to that. Take care, everyone. See you in the next session.